U.S. versus China. Can trade survive the tensions? How deeply are the US and Chinese economies intertwined? More importantly, can this connection endure the rising tensions between these global giants? As the world's two largest economies, the relationship between the United States and China holds immense consequences for international trade and economic stability. What began as a mutually beneficial partnership has evolved into a complex web of competition and geopolitical rivalry, leaving the future of global commerce hanging in the balance. The stakes couldn't be higher. China, with its 1.4 billion people and the second largest economy on the planet, is not just a competitor to the US, but a vital trading partner. The economic interdependence between the two nations is so profound that any significant rupture could reshape the global trade landscape for decades to come. Experts caution that how this rivalry unfolds will likely define international relations for years, making it crucial for both superpowers to manage their competition with care. Welcome to the Global Insight. China's entry into the World Trade Organization in 2001 marked a seismic shift in global trade dynamics, setting the stage for the rapid expansion of its economic influence. For both the US and China, this moment was a catalyst for unprecedented growth. Trade between the two nations surged, with US imports from China skyrocketing from $100 billion in 2001 to over $400 billion by 2023. China's integration into international supply chains has been one of the most significant developments in the global economy over the past 2 decades, transforming it from a manufacturing hub to an indispensable player in global trade. By 2021, the trade relationship between these superpowers reaching a staggering total value of $682 billion, with a glaring trade imbalance favoring China. The US imported nearly 4 times as much from China as it exported, highlighting the extent of their economic interdependence. As of 2023, imports from China accounted for approximately 18% of total US imports, cementing China's crucial role in the American economy. This deep integration underscores the delicate nature of the trade relationship, where any shift could send shockwaves through the global market. As the world's two largest economies, the US and China are locked in a trade rivalry that extends far beyond tariffs and trade deficits. It's a competition over technological dominance and future economic supremacy. At the center of this clash are semiconductors and smartphones, particularly iPhones, which have become key symbols in the US-China economic relationship. Semiconductors, often referred to as the oil of the digital age, are critical to everything from military technology to everyday electronics. The US continues to impose restrictions on China's access to advanced semiconductor technologies, while China races to develop its own domestic chip-making capabilities. The iPhone, an American product heavily reliant on Chinese manufacturing, perfectly exemplifies this interdependence and tension. Despite US efforts to diversify supply chains, moving iPhone production to places like India, China remains an indispensable player in the tech ecosystem. Under President Biden, the US-China trade relationship has become even more complex. In 2024, his administration escalated the trade conflict by increasing tariffs on Chinese goods worth $18 billion, with a sharp focus on sectors crucial to both nations' futures like electric vehicles or EVs, semiconductors, and critical minerals. This move intensified the strain that began during the Trump administration's trade war, but with a focus that underscores the geopolitical stakes at play. The competition over EVs is particularly telling. As both nations vie to lead the green energy transition, the US tariffs on Chinese EVs prompted swift retaliation, with China launching an anti-dumping probe, a signal that both sides are ready to dig in for a prolonged economic battle. President Biden faces the challenging task of balancing national interests while preventing an all-out trade war with China. The recent escalation in tariffs and trade restrictions is part of a broader strategy to curb China's technological rise and protect critical U.S. industries.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
In May 2024, the Biden administration further extended tariffs on Chinese steel and aluminium, adding more pressure to an already fragile relationship. These moves, combined with earlier trade sanctions on semiconductor exports, are designed to limit China's access to the advanced technologies that power both its economy and military ambitions. With the 2024 US election approaching, both President Biden and his opponent, former President Donald Trump, have taken a hardline stance on China, signaling that the issue of trade tensions is unlikely to dissipate anytime soon. Both leaders recognize the importance of appealing to voters who view China as a strategic threat. For global investors, this climate of heightened economic friction poses significant challenges. Navigating an investment landscape marked by tariff uncertainty, fluctuating trade policies, and geopolitical rivalry requires an intricate understanding of how these forces might reshape global markets in the years to come. The U.S. China relationship under President Biden has been a mix of escalating tensions and cautious diplomacy. From the outset, Biden inherited a trade war, and while there were hopes for a reset, competition between the two superpowers only intensified. On January 20, 2021, Joe Biden took office as the 46th US president, signaling potential shifts in the trade dynamic. However, the tension from the previous administration's tariffs lingered, with both nations vying for dominance in critical sectors like technology and clean energy. In July 2024, a key diplomatic moment occurred on July 27th when the Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi in Laos. This meeting aimed to manage competition while exploring cooperation on global issues. Just days later, on July 31st, China imposed export controls on drones with potential military uses, reflecting its focus on safeguarding national security. Amid rising tensions, a breakthrough came on August 19th when US and Chinese officials agreed to strengthen financial cooperation, showing that despite rivalry, both sides had a vested interest in global stability. From August 27th to the 29th, US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan met with Chinese leaders in Beijing, discussing counter-narcotics and military communications, emphasizing the need for open channels despite the friction. However, by September 5th, tensions spiked again as the US Commerce Department imposed export controls on advanced technologies, targeting China's technological growth. Just days later, from September 9th to the 11th, the US House passed multiple anti-China bills during China Week, underscoring a hardened stance as the 2024 election approached. Finally, on September 13th, the US Trade Representative announced steep tariff increases on Chinese goods, further heightening the trade conflict. The semiconductor industry has emerged as one of the most critical flashpoints in the US-China trade war. The US recently announced plans to double its tariff rate on Chinese semiconductors, raising it from 25% to 50% by 2025. This move reflects growing concerns in the US about its dependence on China, which controls nearly 70% of the global semiconductor manufacturing. Semiconductors are the backbone of modern technology, powering everything from smartphones to advanced military systems, making them a key focus in the battle for technological supremacy. The sharp increase in tariffs is more than just an economic measure. It represents a strategic response to China's dominance in a sector vital to both national security and economic growth. The US is striving to reduce its reliance on Chinese suppliers, fearing the potential risks of over-dependence in an industry so essential to the future of innovation. This escalation underscores the intersection of trade and technology, with semiconductors at the heart of a global contest for power. One of the clearest indicators of a shifting global economic dynamic is Apple's decision to relocate a significant portion of its iPhone manufacturing from China to India. Rising labor costs, geopolitical risks, and the strain of escalating tariffs have pushed major corporations like Apple to rethink their reliance on China. India, with its expanding industrial capabilities and competitive labour market, has quickly become a favoured alternative for diversifying supply chains. Apple's move is more than just a strategic business decision. It signals a broader shift in global manufacturing trends driven by the ongoing US China trade tensions. By relocating to India, Apple not only mitigates its exposure to the complexities of the US China relationship, but also supports the US strategy of reducing dependence on China for critical supply chains. For China, this relocation marks a challenge to its long-standing dominance as the world's manufacturing hub, signaling the potential reshaping of global trade in the years to come. Beyond the realm of trade, the South China Sea has emerged as a focal point of military tension, further complicating US-China relations. The US has increased naval patrols in the region, aiming to counter China's expansive territorial claims and assert freedom of navigation in these contested waters. These maneuvers, intended to challenge Beijing's ambitions, highlight how closely intertwined economic and military rivalries have become in recent years. As the US seeks to curb China's influence both economically and militarily, the overlap between trade disputes and geopolitical tensions creates an increasingly volatile landscape. The South China Sea, with its critical shipping lanes and vast natural resources, represents a flashpoint where these two superpowers vie for dominance, not only in trade, but also in strategic military positioning. The intertwining of these issues underscores the complexity of US-China relations, as each confrontation in one area ripples through the other. On the global stage, China is strategically leveraging its influence within BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, as a key platform to expand its geopolitical reach. As the dominant economic force within this coalition, China sees BRICS as a crucial tool to counterbalance Western dominance and promote a multipolar world. With BRICS representing 46% of the world's population and 36% of global GDP, China's position is especially powerful. It alone accounts for 65% of the group's GDP. This economic clout allows China to steer the group's agenda and position itself as a leader of emerging economies. The recent decision to expand BRICS by including key players like Saudi Arabia and Iran has only bolstered the bloc's potential to challenge Western-led institutions. Additionally, discussions within BRICS about conducting trade in local currencies rather than the US dollar align with China's broader goal of promoting the yuan on the global stage. This shift could erode the US dollar's dominance in international trade, making a significant power play by China in reshaping global financial systems. Public sentiment is also shaping the US-China rivalry, adding a layer of complexity to diplomatic relations. A recent survey found that 89% of Americans now view China as either a competitor or an outright enemy, reflecting growing concerns over China's expanding global influence. Meanwhile, many in China see US policies as deliberate attempts to curb their nation's rise, further fueling a mutual sense of suspicion and distrust. This divided public perception underscores how deeply entrenched the rivalry has become, not only between governments, but also within the societies of both nations. Despite the intensifying competition, there are crucial areas where US-China cooperation remains essential. Climate change is one such domain where both countries acknowledge the need for joint action. Recent discussions have focused on how these two economic giants can work together to address the global climate crisis, particularly in reducing emissions and investing in clean energy. Another unexpected but vital area of collaboration is counter-narcotics, specifically in combating the growing problem of synthetic opioids like fentanyl. Both nations have a shared interest in tackling this crisis, and a new working group has been established to coordinate efforts in disrupting supply chains and enhancing law enforcement cooperation. These areas of collaboration offer glimmers of hope that diplomacy can still prevail, even in the face of mounting tensions. As we look ahead, a critical question looms. Can the US and China manage their intense rivalry without it escalating into outright conflict? President Biden has repeatedly stressed the importance of establishing guardrails, mechanisms aimed at preventing military confrontations or accidental escalations. However, with both nations fiercely protecting their global interests, striking a balance between competition and diplomacy will prove to be a monumental challenge. Experts warn that without effective communication and robust crisis management protocols, the risk of miscalculation is dangerously high. Any misstep could lead to unintended military clashes, particularly in flashpoints like the South China Sea. While neither nation desires a direct conflict, they must both prepare for the possibility, underscoring the fragility of this high-stakes relationship. The future of U.S.-China relations will depend on the ability of both superpowers to manage their competition carefully, ensuring that rivalry does not spiral into something far more dangerous. In the end, U.S.-China trade relations represent a precarious balance between deep economic interdependence and fierce competition. Both nations are locked in a complex dance, where cooperation in areas like climate change must coexist with rivalry over critical industries like semiconductors and electric vehicles. China's growing influence through BRICS and moves like Apple shifting its manufacturing to India only add layers to this already intricate relationship. These dynamics are not static, but rapidly evolving, reshaping not only the bilateral relationship, but also the global economic landscape. Understanding the nuanced nature of this rivalry is key to predicting how global trade and power structures will evolve. As the world watches this tug-of-war between the two largest economies, the future of international relations will likely hinge on whether the US and China can manage their competition without allowing it to spiral into deeper conflict. That's it from the team at the Global Insight for now. We want to hear what you think. How does the US-China trade rivalry affect you? Do you think the competition will intensify or cool down in the coming years? What role do you think other nations like India and BRICS members will play in this evolving dynamic? And as always, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel here at the Global Insight. And until next time, stay tuned.